And on the top right-hand side, it is the Russian Zerg, Vanya.
A pretty good beginning to the COVID era DreamHacks, to be honest. Kind of had the summer season 2020 to show up and I guess display what he has to offer. And we had, the whole Roddy hype train on Vanya, which he still says he has to this day. But after that, didn't really get to ascend much farther, right? So Vanya's been very dependable in DreamHacks, which is already a feat in and of itself, but hasn't, been, I guess, proven to be the next best Zerg, because we do talk about Raynor and Serral. And then we do usually talk about Lambo, but kind of depending on, what feels to be the seasons. It's a seasonal thing. Is Lambo really on, or is he slightly off? And a laser, of course, in there as well. But then, as I said, we're just, it's a bit of a Zerg drought over in Europe, especially compared to something like 2015. So he can have a real chance of proving himself to be even better than the old standards. He could actually, in this group, I truly believe, perform better than Lambo, depending on perhaps his nerves, I guess, if he's got those under control. And if Lambo's not feeling this season, as he didn't feel last season so much either. But that's it's getting far ahead of ourselves. We're early in the first week of DreamHack. We got one more week of groups. That's still a lot of games. There's just far too many games, which is why we also have that lovely B stream. So guys, make sure to check that out. And what do we have here for the ZVZ? Normal openers. I'm glad I had other things to talk about. It's completely normal.
Yeah, nothing much going on right now. I completely agree with you. I think that Lambo having that 1-0 start to the season is going to help him out. Last time he didn't have that luxury. Now he can play a little bit more calm. If he can take this win, I really believe that he can snowball. And yeah, I agree with everything that you said, especially with Vanya coming in and maybe not being the super Zerg that he was expected to be by Roddy yet. But at the same time, it takes time, right? Like it's. I mean, StarCraft has been out for so long. All of these players have been playing for so long that to really make your mark, it really what matters the most is that you're constantly improving. And I think Vanya is one of those players that has an upward trajectory. So as long as he can keep that up, he'll catch up eventually.
There may be a little bit of expectations on him because of past performances, but not nearly as much as, say, for Lambo. Everyone is anticipating him to win. Over 70% of you in Twitch chat believe he will win. He's a very smart guy. He really seems to understand ZVZ, what has turned into a very complex and very tricky matchup. The best out of it seems to be anyone. I guess him and a laser always, talking together, figuring things out. And I do believe in his ZVZ skill in particular, but sometimes, even as tricky as the matchup can be, sometimes maybe a more brute force approach can work too, which is kind of where I've put Vanya a little bit in my mind, thinking about a lot of his victories being some like 1-1 roach pushes, for instance, versus Terran. And that, it takes just a little bit of, missed scouts, a missed opportunity for a Vanya all in to catch you right before you're ready to go.
Yeah, most definitely. And that's exactly what it is. I mean, for Lambo, he's always taken pride in how well he can prepare for his opponents. He can study his opponents. He can try to play those mind games. He's a very apt, conscious player, right? Like he knows what's going on. He likes to put it into words, put it into thoughts, even make guides about it, talk about it on his stream. There's no doubt there's an ability to his own ability to do that, right? Like he's incredible at that. But Vanya can be unpredictable enough that even if you know there's an aggression coming, you don't know what the form of that aggression is going to take. So it's really going to come down ultimately to scouting and such, and Lambo being very diligent, as we say that, with 2 Zerglings already inside of Vanya's main, will scout the lair and the lack of a gas here. So even though there's 2 gases in the natural, there's no gas in the main, and that should give him some tips as to what this could be. It's going to be melee from Vanya, so already up to some trickery there.
I wonder if that slightly delayed gas, because ultimately they come down to 3 gases, but it was more delayed for Vanya, could tip him off. I mean, it's such a small difference, and you do still need at least the gas to go into, of course, the upgrade. Costs the same as the missile upgrade, but then also maybe Banelings, if that was also your plan. It's going to be Spire after the Lings, so we didn't see a huge swell of Lings. We saw the lair actually got, and it wasn't going to be any surprise, just kind of all in. So Spire is that natural development off of a Ling-based start, and that's, I think, what Lambo is really going to be diligent about searching for. He doesn't quite know 100% what's up, but if he could get back into that main, see that the gas has been taken, see that the Spire is there, there, or even into the third perhaps, to see how fast the 2 extra gases, then he would 100% know. He might already just be believing it based off what he already has seen, saying, okay, I think I've got this together. Let's go ahead and do a Nidus Swarm, because Nidus plus Queens, hitting with the +1 and the Roach speed, it's going to be perfect against what Vanya's doing.
Yeah, and as you were saying that, our observer, of course, showing us that Overlord that's going to be pivotal. Lambo or Vanya does not have a spotting, circling, or Queen or Overlord or anything in that location, so the Nidus is more likely to come in, but at the same time, Vanya will get inside, will spot the Nidus in the natural base and run inside of the main. Takes 7 drones so far for Lambo. This will stall things for now. And Vanya very smartly also runs away with the rest of his links, doesn't waste them. Keeping up some presence out on the map is really important for Vanya so that this doesn't necessarily happen. But in spite of scouting the Nidus, he hasn't reacted to it. I guess maybe he didn't click on it, Jess.
I mean, he sees that it's a Nidus Swarm now, but it could absolutely be one of those things where even when you scout it, your thinking was on something else, right? So you don't really realize what you have scouted. This is devastating. He could have had Lings in the main to deny the Nidus Swarm. Then he would have the hole in the front and the natural plugged up, hopefully. Then you just pop out. That's the ideal. But with Queens and Roaches already in the main base, this is just too much to clean up with just mutas. They don't kill things very fast. And in fact, they might not be able to kill these Queens at all.
Not at all. Yeah, this is definitely a victory here for Lambo in game 1. Beautiful execution, beautiful read as well. I thought that the trickery for Vanya was good. Like you said, he barely delayed the gas in the main, not a huge tell, but at the same time, he was upgrading on the Evo chamber at the front, which Lambo would have noticed. And there was a Roach Warren at the front as well. So it wasn't, to me at least, a less experienced player, or a less, maybe not experienced, but a lesser player than Lambo. Like, to me, that looks like, yeah, it could be Roaches still, but Lambo with the perfect read knows it was Muta, and that knows that upgrade was either a fake or +1 melee. It was the +1 melee and hits with a wonderful timing here, very decisive, and will be able to take Vanya down in this first game.
I'm a little surprised Vanya's still in it. There's still so many Queens. You could be talking about Spore Crawlers back at home. He has killed, some drones. He's killed 14 just now. He killed 7 earlier on. So Lambo is actually sitting pretty on full saturation, but 20 drones does still beat 0. And the army that Lambo has does still beat the army that Vanya has. I guess just really hoping that he'll be able to find everything disjointed. But okay, there's the tap out. GG. Lambo takes game 1.
Yeah, again, a very impressive read there. Those 2 circlings sitting inside was pivotal for him. I mean, if they don't, then all you see is that wall off, all you see is that upgrade, and then the read becomes all that much more difficult. Vanya did have an opening there with the Link counterattack that was really beautiful, killed some drones, etc. But it also kind of bites back in the sense that he didn't have many links left over outside of Lambo's base to threaten a counter offense should the Nidus go up, right? So kind of a double-edged sword. If Vanya had been able to defend somehow, if he had seen it coming, if he had clicked on that Nidus, maybe he could have made some spines at the front. Maybe he could have, like you said, have links in the main to deny it, and then we're looking at perhaps a different game. But as it stands, very well done by Lambo.
Yeah, that was just, at the end of the day, that was almost unwinnable in the situation that Vanya had put himself in with the build order that he decided to do versus Lambo. We get out of the Nidus from Adam more Queens. But there are opportunities. Like, if you can delay the Nidus Swarm repeatedly, then that's kind of the first opportunity. But it does get a little more complicated if the Roach player doesn't just wait for only the Nidus Swarm, right? So that was something else that Lambo did. He did just run across the map with the Roaches. He didn't put everything into the Nidus Swarm so that it was only about killing the Nidus Swarm, because I think that would have been much easier. There was also a Roach attack, a legitimate Roach attack on his front door that he was not prepared for. He had to buy time. So also taking care of the Nidus Swarm does get trickier. But it still is just, at the end of the day, I really, that's the most obvious spot for a Nidus Swarm, right? Is in that corner. And I guess Vanya was just thinking 100%, he's going to go with the Roaches. He's going to put the Nidus Swarm on the front lines. Yeah. So in that way, Lambo, I guess, doing a little bit of his own trickiness, kind of, is kind of cool. Now we're in a game 2, Light Shade. We got a 12 pull on the way from this guy in the top left. He is Vanya.
Yeah, relatively short rush distance map. Let's see if Lambo has what it takes to hold. This is Lambo. Shopify Rebellion. So both players went for a 16 hatch, which is the standard in CVC last game. I don't expect anything different than this game from Lambo. And there goes the drone to drop that 16 hatch. Once upon a time, 17 hatch was the standard. I'm talking like 7 years ago or something like that. But that was considerably worse against 12 pulls, actually, because the earlier you finish your hatchery, you get the extra armor going, and those links do significantly 20% less damage effectively. So it's it's a good adjustment that Circs have made over time.
Yeah, it's 2 queens pop out at the same time too. It makes it a little bit easier not to, well, hopefully not to get them overwhelmed. This is going to be a hatchery from Vanya, so it's not going to be all in. No drone pool, no gas was taken with this. It is going to be looking for perhaps a kill on the hatchery if it really is just controlled terribly by Lambo, but usually more so on the drones, hoping that they pull the drones, mishandle the drones, which is a little bit more likely, while they wait for their lings. And then if you can kill 5 drones, that would be, I think, for Lambo a huge mistake. He'd really disapprove of himself if he let that happen, but it would put Vanya into a better position. Lambo not even taking gas at this, by the way. He's going to pull the drones. He already knows this on the way, so he's able to mentally figure this out from the get-go. And now it is about controlling the drones while waiting for those links.
Yeah, very fast drone pool. The positioning here for Vanya, for aspiring 12 pullers, I guess, is very important here. You want to be facing the ramp so that the links just have to turn around to face and kill the drones in a line so that your links are all attacking at once. Vanya doing a good job of not flinching here and there. Will take down 1 drone and a couple of links will spawn. A second drone goes down. 2 links on their own get taken down. Good drill, however, for Lambo. Will lose an extra drone. And Vanya actually taking a decent engagement against those links. And another drone. There's a red one too. Zombie grab. So there's the 5. You were looking for 6 even for Vanya, who only made 10 circlings as well. So not too shabby.
No, I think that's exactly what I was talking about. I think Lambo actually is like, that wasn't my best. You know, I just gotta admit that. There are holds we see where people only lose 2 drones, and those would be pretty good holds because the drone counts, I've only just evened up and a little bit ahead for Vanya because he killed so many. So if you only lose 2 drones, if you manage to just micro absolutely perfectly and lose none, then you feel like it's a little boss. Like you've handled the 12 pull, but losing 6, that's what Vanya was kind of hoping for. Lambo doesn't have anything else going for him either that would help in that regard. I mean, I'm talking about speed, of course. Like, let me finish my thought here. If he had speed on the way, maybe he could be threatening with a counterattack, but he did not take gas, actually. But then I'm like, hold on. Maybe because he doesn't have the gas taken, or at least took it a little bit later, at least you could say his economy, mineral-wise, which is most important right here, right now, at least that was, it had something else going for it. But I'm not sure which one Lambo prefers. He is trying to get to the gas now. It's going to be scouted before it has enough to get the medlock boosts. I know what Vanya's going for. That's a lair. That's easier to sell. Lair's already on the way on 2 bases.
Yeah, very, very fast lair. Started at around 170 gas for Vanya, opting to skip the link speed. So most likely will be some sort of roach play, I imagine. Question mark. It's a tricky one. There's the roach warren, so it does look like it. And we're gonna have a roach speed, maybe a +1 timing to go along with it for Vanya. Very interesting approach. Completely, both players actually completely skipping the link speed, so they're not gonna be spending money there. And slight advantage, I would say, Vanya, given all things went his way. Another thing to point out as well is how early Lambo pulled those drones. He pulled them right away, right before even the links found their way into the natural base. And if we look at the hatchery of Lambo in the natural base, it has more than half of its HP, so it had a lot of HP to leverage still. So I feel like the fact that he pulled them as early as he did, instead of a few seconds later, is also some more mining time lost, where the hatchery could have been taking a little bit more damage. Obviously, that's nitpicking, and in some universe, it ends up playing out a little bit better for Lambo, and he loses no drones as a result. But yeah, I think Vanya with a slight edge.
Yeah, we see that with the just slight increase in economy. It is now being evened out completely, though. I mean, we're talking about the spikes in economies. Look at the income graph. The spike was once, and then it wasn't even that big of a spike because it was so early on in the game. Things can play out here for Lambo is what I'm getting at. And while that economy difference and how effective was the 12 pool are definitely things that we have to talk about, the bigger thing is that Lambo, he saw the lair, he didn't actually see the spire. Now, his lair was, what, like 20 seconds later, maybe a bit more than that. He could be thinking, okay, well, he had a more optimized build than me because he was kind of in control of the situation. But I think you also have to be very worried. A guy who tried to go Spire in the first game might try and do so again in a tricky fashion. That's exactly why Lambo sends in a very fast Overseer. His lair was done. Many reasons not to do it. And now he has the lay of the land. But he doesn't have the same opportunity to go for a Nidostorm and just kind of, nip it in the bud. He's going to have to play against mutas, and then whatever that would entail, transition over into roaches, mass mutas, up for him to figure that one out.
Yeah, and he's going for a small attack while defending with some roaches, which is a little bit weird to me. I feel like he should have just pushed on the gas pedal because this muta, he's just trying to buy time, and he started droning up as a response to the muta. But, Vanya was never going to be able to make too many muta. He made 4 right away. And that was that, because he was spreading himself so thin in terms of economy. So we're talking about a small advantage Vanya there earlier, while the drone counts were even. And the reason for that was that Vanya was taking his gases very fast. He was taking to the Spire. He was getting that extra tech, and that was the brunt of his investment. Whereas Lambo was investing all into kind of like just drones and then roaches, right? So if Vanya had gone for the same route as Lambo, he would just trade up half more. He went for kind of a half and half, and it's actually gonna pay out big time because I think Lambo didn't apply any pressure, recognizing perhaps that Vanya wasn't gonna be able to make too many muta. And it's always risky because eventually if you get cleaned up and you lean in heavily on the roaches, then you just lose the game. But as it stands, Vanya's getting away with murder because he gets away with having those muta for the map control. He's gonna be able to come in onto Lambo at any angle he wants after clearing all the overlords. He's gonna have potential here harassment onto the drone line, forcing spores, just making the life of Lambo a lot more difficult while he drones up, while he takes a 4th. So yeah, it's gonna be a difficult game for the German, this one.
Feels like it's almost impossible. Vanya has already taken such an extreme lead here. But Lambo not one to back down from a fight. Vanya adds in a couple more mutas just to kind of get the more acceptable number, I suppose. If you bother making a Spire, we do kind of say 6 is the bare minimum, if not usually more, maybe more 8. And that's if you're going to go for harassment, just kind of get it out there. As you said, map control, picking off overlords, a little bit of harassment, but not much more than that. But he also does grab the +1 flyer, so a little surprised by that, but it is more so about the roaches, his economy being almost 20 drones up, 4th base already done, and it's not like he's that far behind in upgrades. He is not going to have a carapace, so he is behind an upgrade here, but he has a much better economy, and he's going to be able to max out a lot faster. So if Lambo can both hold this incoming potential max attack from Vanya, as well as do damage with his tunneling claws, then Lambo seems to be back into it. But can he do both of those things? Or is it more about the turtle and hope that you can get to perhaps lurkers?
Yeah, I love everything that you're pointing out. I think that's what it is. He's gonna go for that hive very quickly. Oh, fake hive actually from Lambo. Very interesting here. Maybe trying to bait the attack from Vanya, and if it is unsuccessful, then maybe he can take a 4th or something like that. It's looking very difficult. Vanya knows that he's maxed. He knows his army is not gonna get much better. He doesn't want to sacrifice the muta whatsoever. So he's just gonna move out and try to do damage, try to trade on Lambo's side of the map. It's very important in CVC that you trade when you are maxed on your opponent's side of the map, because otherwise what happens is if you have more workers, as is the case for Vanya here, then your opponent's army, when they get maxed, is going to get bigger, and if you trade on your side of the map, that can snowball into victory for your opponent. So trading on the other side of the map is good, even if Vanya doesn't take 1-to-1 trades. Any sort of even-ish trades will favor him. That's it. With the Ravagers in front, Lambo taking very good engagement to start things off.
Yeah, Vanya didn't have a lot of protection for his Ravagers, which unfortunately are all being taken down. Already quite a few falling, as Lambo was perhaps, to Vanya's surprise, not just ready for the engagement, but even wanted to take the engagement. He pounced when he saw an opportunity. There was no indecision there, and Vanya might have been surprised by that. He's probably hoping to bully Lambo a lot more with the increased Ravager count that he had past tense. Now, he still does have a few more Ravagers, not nearly as much. A lot of roaches going across the map means they're not defending back over here. Maybe Vanya can still make it happen, though. He is now down an upgrade, but the question is, does Lambo's army have the numbers? It's certainly splitting away from the Corrosive Vials. It seems to be pushing in here. A Spine Crawler actually at the 3rd might even come in clutch to help the defense for Vanya, who is starting to breach Lambo's natural, taking down the Queens, defending his 3rd base. And in his defense of the 3rd base, he also defends his 4th. Lambo completely all in with this, has not made it work. And that just might be the tap out time then.
It has to be, yeah. I mean, it's not looking good for Lambo here. A beautiful move there by Vanya, and just holding that incredible concave behind his natural base with the spine to aid him, like you were mentioning, and is able to stabilize. I was a little bit worried there for a second because Lambo in the counter offense was just heading into that situation that I was describing earlier, where he was maxed on the side of Vanya, on Vanya's side of the map. But Vanya very good at even tanking some damage with his hatchery, just having a beautiful concave. And then the Ravager numbers came in handy, whereas before out in the open, the Roaches kind of reigned supreme over his Ravagers, which were a little bit mispositioned for the first engage. Love the counterattack by Vanya because that sets him up a win condition right away. Like you said, Lambo was all in, but he wasn't all in when he moved out. He was all in when Vanya shows up at his third and starts doing damage. So that was kind of the checkmate move for Vanya. He said, if I hold, I win. He holds, and he'll even up the series.
It was pretty cool, though, from Lambo. You mentioned the hive cancel, right? So he was perhaps just baiting Vanya into an attack, or not even a dedicated attack. If Vanya was trying to play a safe game and just, again, oh, well, bully him a little bit because I have like 15 Ravagers, right? Then either way, he's incorrect. There is a Lambo who's capable of defending, or in that case, capable of even pouncing on him, because he didn't invest into a hive, into Vipers and Lurker upgrades and what have you, or even Lurkers at all quite yet, right? So that was a cool little way of Lambo trying to get back in to a game that had already spiraled a bit out of control. The other way was his Tunneling Claws, right, which didn't end up doing anything at all. But, I mean, respect to Lambo for trying to make that into a game that he could win, but Vanya controlling it correctly. You know, I think that was probably a bit of a panic moment. Most of us got the adrenaline pumping when we saw the Ravagers on the escape getting knocked down, but Vanya kept his cool and just identified, I guess, his position, and that if he could just hold, he'd win. That's exactly what he did. So we head into a game 3 between these two. In the top rights for Shopify Rebellion, he is Lambo.
Yeah, it really was a beautiful game. Lambo always playing from behind, but still making good decisions. We'll see, however, if the underdog can reign supreme today. In the bottom left-hand side, the Russian Zerg, Vanya. Lovely game, really. I like that Lambo really identified his win condition. Like you said, he was super decisive when he moves in on Vanya on his side of the map. That was the time to go for him. That was his last remaining opening. But beautifully played from Vanya. And if I had to think, if I was in Lambo's position, and again, he is a much better player than I ever was, to be honest. But if I was in his position, I would have seen, okay, he's made enough roaches and he's going for Muta. There's no way he's going to be able to have that many Muta. And he had already been investing into roaches. And in the moment that he spots the Spire, he makes 3 drones. I think if he just pushes on the gas pedal there for the roaches and tries for an attack, maybe that was one of his stronger openings, because yeah, there's going to be Muta, but there's so much invested into 4 Muta that are not going to be able to kill those roaches on the low ground early enough to perhaps make a difference. So maybe you kill a third, or maybe you kill enough drones to stabilize, or something of the sorts. But the worst feeling in the world is you made a lot of roaches, and then you're conceding map control anyway to just the 4 Muta that your opponent made, and you'd never had a chance because you split your army kind of like defensively, expecting that Vanya might counter poke. And you just send a few roaches forward, maybe to force some roaches just to make sure that your opponent's not getting away with murder on the drone count. So I can understand the thought there, kind of just trying to minimize his losses at that point. But it was such a difficult position that he was putting himself in the moment that he decides not to go for the all-in.
Right. He goes for kind of a half-hearted attempt while not necessarily getting that many drones. I think he also realized, okay, that didn't work. He still gets map control. He's probably still getting away with all the drones. And I already have a low drone count. I'm already in a dicey position. This guy might already even be ready to kill me. So we saw Lambo even stay on a lower drone count, perhaps longer than, replay that game, know exactly what your opponent's going to do. He probably fits in drones a bit faster, but after he sends out his roaches, realizes I can't do very much. Oh no, Vanya's already got some pretty good leads. Okay, when is he going to try to kill me? Well, we saw that Vanya was waiting till he was maxed out for the most part, but Lambo, not 100% sure about it. He was stuck, 20 drones below for a fairly long time. So they really made the last minute of that game truly a desperate one. But Lambo, even in such peril, was able to figure out at least one way and try and trick his opponent. And now we have a game 3 fresh, because that was also a game that Lambo, I think, just started off in a disappointing fashion for him, losing 6 drones to a 12 pool.
Yeah.
That's not a good feeling. So now that we have a fresh game, a fresh starts, an even game, we see that we have two very different choices. Lambo going for the Roach wall off on 2 bases against Vanya going for the Ling, Baneling, third hatch. He's not going to cancel the Baneling nest just because he sees that, oh, well, I guess he hasn't actually seen it yet, but he's seen no third base, so he should know that it's going to be the Roach in the natural. But he's still going to keep that up and running, which, I mean, is very helpful if it turns out to be a trick. Ooh, the block. Oh, the Ling still gets in and sees the lair. It's going to keep running around, too, delaying anything that Lambo was trying to go for. Ah, how annoying is that?
Very annoying, and it's a confident move for Lambo to do this. I feel like he's playing the opponent, but in the third game of a series where it's tied 1-1, I feel like it might be a little bit too risky to actually give someone of the caliber of Vanya like the disrespect of sorts to just be like, I'm just gonna play this super safe. Of course, this is a strong build. The Roach Warren is the Roach pushes are always strong, but this is not the best map for it. It's a medium-sized map compared to the last map. For example, you would have hit a lot faster with those Roaches. You wouldn't be going up a ramp with those Roaches. Whereas on this map, it's kind of like just saying like, come at me. I'm not going to die to any shenanigans that you do early on. And you're known for that shenanigans. But in this case, Vanya, I mean, he's playing safe himself. He's doing his own thing. He's going to have his faster third. He's looking for a deny. And if he gets it here, I'm starting to really like his position more and more.
Yeah, I'm already liking his position, but especially if he got a third base deny. He's not going to go for it. It is going to be saved, but there's that Spire that Vanya has been heading towards. He got the lair. He got the gases. Now the Spire comes down again. Could just play off of that with a couple of mutas, then move over into Roaches, which I think might be the plan. It's kind of even maybe a bit hiding the Roaches in the back in case the Overseer gets in. Maybe it sees one or the other, but not both, which is currently the case. So the Overseer sees the +1 in the Roach, and it doesn't see the Spire. But it's, I mean, able to see all the gases. It might just predict that it's in the main base. Can't really go back in with the Queen's hot in its tail. But anyways, Vanya knew that he could get away with this. You know, that scout that told him it wasn't going to be any surprise Ling flood, for instance. And now with scouting, of course, the third base, keeping eyes on where the Roaches are. Vanya figures he's going to get away with it. And he is right about that. The Spire's going to finish. He's going to make, I guess, 6 mutas again and then go back into Roaches.
Yeah, and this is Lambo again being overly cautious, in my opinion at least. He's going for the 2-1 timing for the Roaches, but Muta are going to be out by then. So it's a little bit difficult. He finds himself already in a disadvantageous position in terms of economy. He's continuing to make Roaches, so he will push on forward, maybe even with the Carapace. But if he doesn't push on forward with the Carapace, if he's waiting for the +1 for the +2 attack, which is the more common thing to do here, I think that he's going to be in a lot of trouble. Vanya already adding some spines, recognizing that if he gets to his Muta, if he starts killing Overlords, if he continues to contain the Roaches on the side of the map of Lambo before they can really move out, before they're a threat, and he can start damaging them on the way to his base, he'll be in a fantastic position. He spots a lot of Roaches at the natural base. He hasn't made too many circlings. The Muta are already out. I'm curious to see Lambo's camera. It doesn't seem like he's too surprised. Oh, he is surprised. There he is. So yeah, he does not like this position, Zombie Rat. He's in such a difficult position again.
Yeah, you know, I kind of gave him the benefit of the doubt, right? The Overseer seemed to have been... I mean, the Overseer as itself is perfect, trying to get in to get the full scout. It didn't get the full scout, though. And I just gave Lambo the benefit of the doubt that maybe he had seen enough, but he didn't. He did not see that there was another gas in the main base. He didn't see that it was a Spire. He just totally missed out on the opportunity because the Queens did a great job of bullying him away as fast as possible. Now Lambo going to try and do as much damage before he has to transfer over into perhaps more of a defensive game. The Spine Crawlers are done. The Roaches are here, but perhaps not in great number. The Spine Crawlers actually go down really quickly, and Lambo might have been a little shocked at seeing those mutas, but if he can get some serious economic damage, if he can buy himself more time, then this game is still playable. It's not going to be that much damage to the economy. Vanya is still holding strong on the drone lead as Vanya cleans this up with the help of the mutas. But Lambo, I mean, it's his last chance in this best of 3. He's got to play this one out, even if it doesn't really look that great for him. He's at least given himself some wiggle room, right?
Yeah, I mean, this was a lot more decisive. This is exactly what we were hoping he would do in the previous game, right? Like, it's like Muta, it's not going to be that many. Let's push on forward and see if we can make something happen. He almost manages to do something, but this time around, Vanya already had those 2 spines at the natural of all things, so preempting that Lambo has to kill him effectively if he's going to counterattack, because the Muta are just such a powerful force in this matchup. If they're out unscouted, unpunished, then they give you insane map control. If we look at the vision for Vanya, I mean, he has the luxury of knowing everything that's going to be going out on the map. That is such a huge deal, right? Like when you can have your overlords out and your opponent just can't, you can come from any angle you want. You can take as many bases as you want. And killing the third hatchery of Lambo with the link counter attack as well was fantastic on his part. So Vanya in a dominant position in this
I think that third kill just ensured victory for Vanya, really. Like, now this is a real comeback game, where if that third had been alive, had been saved, had a couple of drones mining on it, then I'm like, okay, this is it's an obnoxious game for Lambo. Has to play super defensive and make all the right calls. Is he going mass muta or isn't he? Where is he coming in from? All that good stuff. I still think it's playable, but having to wait for the entire hatchery to rebuild before even making use of 45 drones, which in and of itself is not that impressive. This is, well, I don't want to say it's impossible, because I still believe in Lambo's ability to defend, but as long as Vanya doesn't get overconfident, and that is something we can see with mass muta, it does take maybe a couple of fungals, maybe they get to a hive, get one good parasitic bomb, right? If he doesn't let any of those things happen, I think Vanya wins 100%. But let's see what Lambo can do. So far, so good against the initial muta poke arounds, but we know that number has grown a little bit. Lambo's going to have difficulty always telling that. He does have tunneling claws, and they are once again headed over, but well-timed Overseer, well-timed.
Yeah, very good. Probably spotted the shadows. That's one of the easier shadows to see in the game, is the tunneling claw roaches. And Lambo, I mean, he's making path even so that he can move his units a little bit easier from his natural to his third, so that those hydras are a little bit more effective. Vanya has been content with just killing the overlords out on the map. Good sport positioning here for Lambo, but Vanya is having enough muta that he has to make something happen, right? Like, this is how Vanya could throw this game, is if you make this many muta and you don't actually make something happen with them. He has to be doing a little bit more than killing overseers. There we go, pouncing on and killing a hydralisk. I wouldn't mind him going into the main, killing the gases there, for example. Gases are always a good target, and then as units show up isolated, then you can start doing a little bit more damage to them. If he identified that the Hydra then is where it is, he could go and pick it off from the back. So there's always place here for Vanya. There he is going for that gas, as I was talking about. That's kind of like, I think, a very good move, a safe move that is gonna get him instant value. And now we have Lambo pushing out, kind of hoping that there's no banelings. There are no banelings indeed. But there's enough roaches to certainly defend this, so he's gonna wanna shy away from this, maybe mid-map ideally.
He seems like he's committed to this. He's not going to try and turtle the rest of this game. He's trying to at least end the game on his own terms, even if it is with a loss. Some counterattack coming in here from Vanya means that once again he's a little less on the defense. But I think he's just confident in his supply, right? He's overall up 40 supply. The Ravagers don't do a whole lot of time buying. The Hydras do jump on top of the Roaches too, but the drones are getting taken down. The Hatcher's getting taken down. Lambo again in an entirely all-in position. It's right here, do or die, and I think eventually he'll die. This is not winning fast enough.
Yeah, and look at Vanya, very wisely retreating into his natural. Beautiful counterattacks every game pretty much from Vanya, kind of setting himself the win conditions. Just enough roaches. This was fine for Lambo to retreat from. I mean, it was obviously a terrible position no matter what, but he could have retreated up until those roaches show up at his third. When those roaches show up at his third, it's do or die. And yeah, like you said, it's going to be die. So very, very good play from Vanya. Really incredible gameplay, but I can't help but to think that Lambo was playing that a little bit overconfidently.